Or are you engaging in any sort of commerce on the highway?
No, I'm not.
Then all you would do, essentially, first you want to understand what happened. A driver is not someone, well, let's start even before then. What I found in BC, an automobile is not a motor vehicle unless and until the owner submits an application for registration. Unless the owner of the property does that, they have no right to claim that this property is a motor vehicle, and therefore you're not driving it. If you look at the old definitions of a driver wasn't someone who was just operating a conveyance. They were someone who was actively engaged in commerce on the highway. They were either a taxi driver, or a coach driver, something like this, but they were making their living on the highway. If that's the case, the state does certainly have the right to regulate and limit your activities. But what they've done is they've tricked us all into thinking that if I want to exercise my common law right to travel, I'm actually a driver of a motor vehicle, and that's not the case. Your remedy, I believe, would be in the form of looking at the acts, finding the empowering sections, and then serve upon them a notice of understanding and intent and a claim of right, saying, I claim the right that you defrauded me, whatever. I tried to find the peace. But let them know that there wasn't a meeting of the minds. You would like to deregister your property. You don't want it to be seen as a motor vehicle anymore, and claim your right to exercise the common law right to travel.
Now, have people successfully done this, Robert?
Yes. As a matter of fact, one of the people that I'm dealing with is a police officer in Chicago. And he's purchased some packages from me. He really doesn't like the fact that he has been turned into essentially a tax collector. And whenever he is forced to give someone a ticket, he tells them, check out ThinkFree.ca, you might have remedy. So even a lot of the peace officers, they're coming on side as well. They don't like being treated like they're the bad guys. They don't understand the words any more than anyone else. And in BC, I know there's many people doing it. Government can't do anything.
I'd like to point out something about your website. And one of the things I immediately liked about it, and one of the reasons why I even brought you on the show in the first place, there are people out there that are promoting sort of similar sounding ideas, and they've got their websites, and they'll tease you a little bit, and then they lead you to a page where it says, okay, now you need to pay me $1,000, and then I'll send you a CD-ROM with my information on it. What I like about your site is that you really seem to be somebody who's interested in getting this information out there, and you've got, you put your video online, that's free. You've got several PDF files that are downloadable for free. I'd love to see more content out there so people can really just grab this up and then say, you know what, this really was worth the money. I'm going to, after the fact, since I've seen how valuable this is, then send you a contribution. And I think you're doing that to some extent instead of being one of these, what I consider scam artists, basically. You're actually giving somebody...
I do that for a number of reasons. One, you are only ever going to be as free as your neighbor. Don't ever expect any more freedom than that. And I'm pretty unhappy with what's happening up here, and I want to see change, so that means I got to get them on side. Two, I really don't care about money. When it all boils down to it, I couldn't give a shit. Pardon
me.
Okay,
whoa, you got to be careful. Yeah, hey,
I know, sorry.
By the way, thank you for the call, Kathy. We appreciate it. Let's go to Gene, the Christian anarchist in Tennessee. You're on Free Talk Live with Ian and Mark.
Well, guys, I'm afraid I don't buy all this. I've been around for a while, like I've said. I've seen a lot of people promoting this. It's basically very similar to what the Montana Freemen put out. Some of the others that say that this dishonor thing and the straw man idea. And I can explain to you quite simply why there cannot be such a thing as a straw man. And that is that if you live under the law of contract has to be fully disclosed, has to be voluntary, has to be by somebody who's of age and of a sound mind. Otherwise, any one of those things that's not like that will invalidate the contract. So as far as contract law goes, none of this can apply, because if they're tricking you, if they're not fully disclosing things, that invalidates the contract. So
only if you make the claim that it does, though. Otherwise, there's the appearance of consent, there is the appearance of a valid contract, and yet it's not an actual contract, it's not an actual consent, and you can fix it at any time. So your argument that it must be a contract, they're operating upon the appearance of contract.
Well, you know, this all sounds good, but I personally know people that have gone to jail for using similar straw man kind of arguments. And
I believe Robert has said he's gone to jail over this. I mean, that's happened.
And it does sometimes work because bureaucrats are basically lazy. And if you throw a bunch of paperwork at them, a lot of them will just throw their hands up and go away, you know. And it does work that way in the fact that it sometimes frustrates bureaucrats and they leave you alone.
Well, I haven't heard, I mean, Robert hasn't used the term straw man. He hasn't really been focusing on that. From what I've seen, basically this is a way to respond to their, as Robert points out, their offers by just simply offering to ask some questions in order to clarify what it is that they've sent you. And if you just keep asking them questions, they will throw their hands up. That's the way I see it, at least.
Well, it never hurts to question somebody's authority. You know, that's what I always say, question authority, because people basically have none. If you look at God's law, it states that, you know, they're supposed to be in submission to us, not us in submission to them. And what's happened is that there are a bunch of lawless people who believe in the fiction government, and that belief, that inappropriate belief in the existence of this fiction government allows them to strap on a gun and shoot you. That's basically what it does.
Gene, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. Robert, your thoughts?
I would not doubt that might be the case down in the States, and I think that if I was in the States, I don't know that I would be taking this path. I feel very blessed that I'm in Canada and in British Columbia, one of the most liberal places in Canada. And I don't know that I would be able to start what I'm starting anywhere else in the world. So
I don't know. I don't think there are that many differences here. In fact, hang on, Robert. We'll bring you back for a little bit because a couple more people want to talk to you. Your calls as well at 800-259-9231. This is Free Talk Live. So let's bring back Robert Menard from ThinkFree.ca. It's a Canadian website. That's why there's the .ca. ThinkFree.ca. We're talking about, well, basically freedom and government and contracts and how, you know, the government and the lawyers in it have essentially created this system where words don't mean what you think they mean, and as a result, you've essentially turned over you've essentially voluntarily given up your authority over your own life to these government bureaucrats by signing their paperwork and doing as they're requesting that you do. And Robert Menard, you're just saying basically that, and I want to jump back to what Gene said from Tennessee a few moments ago. I don't think that you're getting on the air here claiming that this is a one-size-fits-all solution that's going to work in every country around the world. As you say, you wouldn't necessarily feel as confident about it in America as you do in Canada. But nonetheless, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I believe that it would actually. What I do, I think it will work anywhere in the world. I think the procedure sound in the States, but I think it would be far more difficult to do it at this point in time. Because no offense to you guys, you're turning into a bit of a police state.
Absolutely, and the fact is, these bureaucrats here, they think they've got authority, and they're not afraid to use guns on people, and that's a serious issue that we have to deal with. However, I think that what's so valuable about your approach, and also it's similar to our friend Mark Stevens, is basically that these bureaucrats are used to victimizing people. They're used to sending out their paperwork and having people feel like they're obligated to fill it out and send it back to them. Or they're used to handing them a ticket and people feel like they're obligated to pay that ticket or to contest the ticket. They're only used to certain things happening as a result of them doing their jobs. And I think that what you can do if you sort of adopt this sort of procedure of, well, accepting their notices and just turning it around on them and asking them a bunch of questions in return, they're not used to that. Whether they're in Canada, whether they're in the United States, whether it's Great Britain, the bureaucrats aren't used to that sort of behavior on the part of citizens. And so I think what that does is it says to them, it says to the bureaucrats, I'm not someone who's a pushover. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, and there's more to it, because part of the process, I'm referring back to the gentleman who was talking about the straw man and whatnot. I looked at a lot of what other people were doing. I saw the whole argument, and I said, okay, I see them going to jail. I'm finding another path because I'm not going to jail. That's not part of my goal. Mm-hmm. What I did is I looked at it. Imagine for a moment that all of these statutes, they're the lock. This lock is stopping you from entering into God's kingdom or the biggest party you could possibly imagine. If all you do is study the lock, study their words, and then you try to break that lock, you're going to be seen like a monkey with a stone beating on a padlock, and you're going